let's now deal with a new extension on symmetric nets that are symmetric net with bags. In fact, the symmetric nets do not avoid interleaving. It simplifies the way you specify your system and avoid some repetition of patterns, but you still have interleaving within the transition filed for a given value of a color class. So you still have these combinatorial explosions. And in fact, symmetric net with bags will bring a solution to this problem in some cases. So the idea is to suppress some intermediate and spurious states that you might not need to observe. Let's have a look on a small example. So we consider here a voting machine. It's a referendum because you have to answer just by yes and no, or it's the second turn of a presidential election where you just have two candidates. But no, it's not really because you have you can vote nil too. Okay, let's imagine that it's a yes or no vote. The idea of this model is here. The system is at its initial state. So you generate for one vote, you reset everybody, all the population of voters has not voted yet. Then these people will perform local actions and vote either yes, and then their idea will get there, or no, and then their idea will get here. So you imagine that this net, when everybody has voted, will reach to a list of possible results from everybody voted yes to everybody voted no, with all the intermediate possibilities of dispatching between yes and no votes. Okay. So in fact, this model is correct, but it remains to have a huge complexity because with these intermediary states introduced by the fact that you're still interleaving between the firing of yes and the firing of no for any value, that generates lots of intermediary states, in fact, that are not obviously interesting if you just consider what are the possibilities in terms of what can be the results of the ending vote. So, lots of vote results, and here the idea would be, could we find a way to fire in a sort of symbolic way this part of the net and then avoid all these intermediary situations? So we still have our symmetric net on the left, and let's have on the right the corresponding symmetric net with bag, just to give you the idea of what a symmetric net with bag is. So here, the first part, is exactly the same as in the model of the left-hand side, but here you realize that I have changed the voting transition. I do not have vote yes or vote no. I have an atomic vote that will take everybody from the input marking, and that will automatically dispatch yes and no's atomically. So without having lots of intermediary states with this huge wide losange to finally get to a subset of possible votes. And here what I state that, okay, if Y has voted no, yes, then he cannot vote no. So those who voted yes are not those who voted no. So those who voted no are the complementary of the set of those who voted yes. And here I state that it can be ensured structurally. In fact, it is ensured here because from my marking, I just have one value of a given color token. Here, I can use that to ensure that I will have a unique values, not, for example, two copies of the same identity doing the same behavior. But here, it's also ensured by the initial marking, by the structure of the system. So, here you get an idea of what symmetric net width bags are, okay? And you can catch what situation they allow to avoid and to simplify from the execution point of view of the net, and then, at most important, from the complexity of constructing the symbolic reachability graph. Because the example I provided you has just a few states and then all the possible votes according to the size of the voter class. How many voters you have, and then this is the combination of dispatching you will have between the yes and the no. So this is the complexity that you cannot avoid, but all the intermediary complexity to lead to this result, with lots of intermediary and spurious states are just disappeared. And so it's interesting when you do model checking to use such a class. So now in the next section, let's present all the associated color functions that we will like to raise to manipulate such Petri nets.